Hi, Sagittarius. So, what very became very obvious to me as I stopped the first part of the reading is that this is all about navigating your life from now on. And you're used to navigating your life, but literally as a navigation system, put it that way. It's like you are learning to navigate in a way that looks different than it used to. That may be a little more, keeps things a little bit closer, keeps your life a little closer to what you want it to be, what you're willing to give, what it is that you want to put out there, what you take both seriously and yet at the same time you are very real about. You want to have a good time, but it's not like you are not doing what you need to do. And if you're not, then something very obvious comes to you and disrupts your day to day. You may have been distracting yourself and it's no longer working. This season becomes a lot clearer. Last season, everything's everywhere, everything's moving, whether it's working or not. Things are just coming in and out of the season like no big deal. And you are really not kind of down with the bullshit right now. Again, you want to have a good time, but you also have to address some really important things in the beginning of the month. And you'll notice that something that you weren't expecting again come up. Something that you may have been sleeping on wakes you up. Something that was dormant, maybe since your season. Something that will cause you to have this internal, maybe, conflict until Leo season. Something that you can choose to put down for now and then pick up then. But once you figure it out, I don't think you're going to want to stop, but you'll have a time to assess. Notice how the sun's right in the middle. I just kind of really got drawn into the sun and how no matter what, there's fulfillment. You're finding that fulfillment isn't what it used to be, especially if you're someone who found more superficial things to help fulfill you. Now it's more about the peace that you find just day to day. Just finding moments of peace or pockets of peace or gratitude where you don't have to be as stimulated, where you're allowed to take your time. What becomes very real to you is how worth it all was. How you can easily sit back, but also be completely involved in the process of your own life. How well you navigate action, reception, and this very instinctive nature within you. Not that you haven't been yourself or don't feel like yourself, regardless of how extreme that spectrum is for you right now. Throughout the course of this month and then by the end of the month, it'll be very clear to you who you are and what you represent for yourself. What temperance, what you see when you look at this card, which can be a mixture of these two as well. Passion is easier to find. Motivation is easier to wield, both. Wield more than yield. How the emotion back behind it all is what Cancer season obviously shows you is the catalyst. Work doesn't always need emotion. That's not what I'm saying. Creation doesn't always need emotion, but the underlying feeling of it all, what it's based off of. You come back to that very clear component that, I mean, Cancer season never really let you run away from anyway. If there's anything Gemini season brought to you and brought your attention to, it was where you're devaluing or putting certain desires over needs that actually really need to be met. It kind of put you in your place, perhaps. It may have stung a little. And then the impact that was made on you even more became very clear. Especially when you really needed to take a look at this part of your life, especially as Saturn went retrograde. Venus and Mercury are both in Gemini for the time being. Actually, Venus is going into Gemini. I apologize. This will be out by the time, actually, Venus is in Gemini anyway. It's making you understand where certain moments of emotional tides affect your business judgment. Just because you're mad doesn't mean you take it out on the business around you, no. Just because you're upset, it doesn't mean you influence it upon the thing that keeps you stable, that brings you passion. I think boundaries within that part of yourself become very apparent this month, and where the lack thereof is, and where, the very strong nature of Cancer and then meets Capricorn full moon by the 13th of July, where it's like, hey, if you want to work this out, Leo season's coming, and it's going to force you to feel the heat if you don't, where things become uncomfortable. But I think you find your moment of contentness towards the end of the season. It's possible that you could be not getting along or seeing eye to eye with either a Gemini or a Leo in your life. It may be the part of yourself, and Cancer season can bring this up, is that reparenting of the inner child, like what that part of you really needs as opposed to what you thought it needed or what it needed before. Something last season ultimately changed and shaped your life in a way that's much bigger than you may have realized. And it's important to listen to these parts of you when they come out and shine through. It becomes very obvious to you what becomes important to you and what isn't as important to you, and what feels heavy and what needs to go. From 9 of Cups to 6 of Cups, you may be giving away things that you might have been very emotionally attached to. And it brings room for more creative juices to flow, energy to flow. Some of you might be getting back into a physical routine. If you haven't been in one, this is a great time to move your body even more. Again, if you're traveling, towards the end of the month, it might be better to travel then. But you find this stable balance between the busyness of your life and what your internal world needs. You find that it may come out negatively, what you really need, but you'll find a way to give it to yourself. You'll find a way that whatever the part of you that didn't get something as a kid, the recognition, the love, the attention, you may surprise yourself by how quickly you meet that need this month. And how that was like the missing piece to feeling so much better, so much more able, especially if you're grieving something. Maybe it's a doubt or a part of you that still doubts your capabilities. It's this long time nagging voice maybe in your head, and it's time to not indulge those sides of yourself, but be very clear and straight with yourself. If you've learned anything from this season, it's not to mess around with certain interactions that can ultimately manipulate your life in a way that might not be good for you. So you don't realize that sometimes because we're thinking we're doing what's best, but we ultimately skewer things in a way that can actually slow you down. So more energy, more love, more freedom to enjoy and experience, that's coming to you throughout the course of the month, especially by the end. You're being almost asked to talk to yourself and have this conversation about what's actually important, what's actually necessary, where you place judgment, where you don't. It's really unnecessary, and it's kind of a waste of your time, waste of your voice, waste of your energy. And it's also causing you to constantly interact in a way that's actually counter to what you really need. That's a part of you that needs to be loved, that needs to be acknowledged, that needs to be accepted by yourself, by what you've attached to, by what you can no longer attach to if you want to go another route. Right now the trajectory is from the internal world to the external world, being yourself and more authentic with yourself. And I don't think you felt safe until now, and Cancer season gives you this bubble to experiment what it's like to not knowing that you don't have control, is to kind of let go and let the yin shape you. And that's a big one I like to use. I don't know if you've talked to you about that before, but yang is to shape. It's to do something, to act, to know that you did something and you're looking for a certain effect, you being the cause. You're looking for an outcome perhaps, or just using the energy that you have. Yin is to allow yourself to know that you know, and you're solid and grounded, and your bones are shaped in the way that they are. And the yin relaxes you enough to let go of what's been maybe being held on inside of you and release anything excess to the natural shape that you take. So it's like etching something, or sculpting something and then blowing, or using, I like to use the wood as the analogy. If you're carving out wood and then you blow everything away and then you see this beautiful clean piece of artwork. And I think by the end of the month it's like that. You're gnawing here, etching there, etching there, and then by the end of the month it's like, okay, Leo season's coming. I know it needs sunlight. I know it needs partial sun. I know which direction I'm going in. It's not all confusing like it once was, if it felt that way. But ultimately it came back to yourself, and this is the only time this could really transmute the way it does. This is the magic of this season, that there's so much that can mutate and change within you if you just feed yourself it, and listen. Not because the mother's usually right or Cancer season's right. It's just simply to wash away things that are really just ultimately holding you back, or holding you down, or holding you to parts of yourself that no longer need energy. You could let it die. You could let it rest. You could let it go dormant. Somewhere else it will be useful. It's just no longer useful in your trajectory ahead. Okay. Sagittarius, see you next month.